Dr. Marcus Chen stared at the security footage for the 20th time that morning, his coffee growing cold as he watched the chaos unfold on the screen. The holding cell, designed to contain the most dangerous specimens in the galaxy, looked like a tornado had torn through it. Furniture was scattered everywhere, the walls bore deep scratches, and in the center of it all sat a figure that had the entire Galactic Research Station on edge. She was small, perhaps no bigger than a human teenager, but her appearance was anything but human. Her skin shimmered with scales that changed color based on her mood. Currently, a deep crimson that everyone had learned meant extreme agitation. Her eyes were large and entirely black, reflecting light like obsidian mirrors. Most striking were the sharp spines that ran along her arms and back, which she could extend and retract at will. When angry, they jutted out like deadly needles. The researchers had taken to calling her Subject 47, though some of the younger staff members had started whispering the name Zara when they thought no one was listening. She had been found on the outer rim planet Kepler 442b 3 months ago, living alone in what appeared to be a crashed ship. The rescue team had expected to find survivors, but instead discovered this lone girl who fought like a cornered animal. Commander Sarah Walsh entered the observation room, her military uniform crisp despite the early hour. "Any changes overnight?" she asked, though her tone suggested she already knew the answer. "Same as always," Marcus replied, rubbing his tired eyes. "She destroyed another set of furniture, refused all food offerings, and attacked anyone who tried to enter her cell. We've had to resort to sedative gas just to clean the space." Commander Walsh studied the girl through the one-way mirror. Currently, she was crouched in the far corner, her spines fully extended, watching the door with those unsettling black eyes. "The higher-ups are getting impatient, Doctor. They want results. If we can't establish some form of communication or control, they're talking about transferring her to a maximum security facility." Marcus's stomach churned at the thought. He had seen those facilities. They were more like prisons than research centers, designed to break spirits rather than understand them. "Give me more time. There has to be something we're missing." "You've had 3 months, Marcus. How much more time do you need?" Before he could answer, alarms began blaring throughout the station. Emergency lights flashed red as the automated voice announced, "Code Red! Containment breach! All personnel evacuate Section C immediately." Both Marcus and Commander Walsh rushed to the main security console. The screens showed multiple views of Section C, where Subject 47's cell was located. Somehow, impossibly, she had broken free. The reinforced door that could withstand plasma cannon fire lay twisted and bent, torn from its hinges as if it were made of paper. Security footage tracked her movement through the corridors. She moved unlike anything they had ever seen, sometimes running on 2 legs, sometimes using all 4 limbs to climb walls and ceilings with spider-like grace. Her spines were fully extended, and her scales had shifted to a pattern of black and gold stripes that seemed to pulse with each heartbeat. "How did she get out?" Commander Walsh demanded, speaking rapidly into her communicator to coordinate security teams. Marcus was already running calculations in his head. The cell was rated for creatures 3 times her apparent strength. Either our scans were completely wrong about her physical capabilities, or what? Or she was holding back this entire time, testing us, learning. The thought sent chills down his spine. If the girl had been consciously restraining herself for 3 months, studying their routines and weaknesses, then she was far more intelligent than anyone had assumed. It also meant that every interaction they had attempted was being evaluated and cataloged by a mind that understood far more than she let on. Security teams flooded the corridors, armed with stun weapons and containment nets. The girl had taken refuge in the station's ventilation system, using the narrow passages to avoid the larger groups of pursuers. Occasionally, a guard would catch a glimpse of those gleaming black eyes in the shadows before she vanished again. Dr. Elena Vasquez, the station's xenobiologist, joined them at the command center. "I've been reviewing her behavioral patterns," she said breathlessly. "I think we've been approaching this all wrong." "What do you mean?" Marcus asked, his eyes still glued to the security feeds. "Look at her movement patterns, her reactions to different stimuli. She's not just randomly violent or afraid, there's a logic to it. Every time we've tried to assert dominance or control, she escalates. But when we've accidentally shown submission or retreat, she backs down too." Commander Walsh looked skeptical. "You're suggesting she's following some kind of social hierarchy?" "More than that. I think she's trying to communicate with us, but we keep sending the wrong signals. In many animal species, direct eye contact is a challenge. Approaching the dominant position is a threat. We've been doing everything wrong." A new alarm joined the cacophony. "Hull breach detected in Section D," the computer announced. The security feed showed that Subject 47 had somehow made her way to the outer hull of the station. She was using her claws to cut through the metal plating, creating a hole large enough for her to escape into space. "She can't survive in vacuum," Marcus said, though even as he spoke the words, he realized how many assumptions they had already made about her that had proven wrong. "All units to Section D," Commander Walsh ordered. "We need to stop her before she damages something vital." But as they watched, the girl paused in her cutting. She turned to look directly at one of the security cameras, as if she knew they were watching. For a moment, her scales shifted to a softer blue-green color, and her spines retracted slightly. Then she resumed cutting, but more slowly, more carefully. "She's not trying to escape," Dr. Vasquez realized suddenly. "She's trying to get our attention. This whole breakout, it's a message." "What kind of message involves potentially destroying a space station?" Commander Walsh demanded. Marcus was studying the girl's posture, the way she kept glancing at the cameras. "She's showing us what she's capable of. This isn't escape, it's demonstration. She could have torn through that hull in seconds based on what she did to her cell door, but she's taking her time." As if responding to his words, the girl stopped cutting entirely. She placed her hands flat against the hull and looked directly at the camera again. This time, she slowly retracted all of her spines and allowed her scales to shift to a pale, almost translucent white. "That's submission," Dr. Vasquez whispered. "In almost every species we've studied, that color change indicates surrender or a request for peace." The station fell silent except for the hum of life support systems. Everyone watched as the girl carefully backed away from the hole she had created, moving slowly and deliberately to show she was no longer a threat. "Stand down, all security teams," Commander Walsh ordered quietly. "Do not approach, but stop the aggressive pursuit." Marcus was already moving toward the exit. "I'm going to Section D." "Absolutely not," Commander Walsh grabbed his arm. "It's too dangerous." "Look at her," Marcus pointed to the screen. "She's trying to tell us something. For 3 months, we've been treating her like a dangerous animal, but what if she's not? What if she's just a frightened child who's been trying to communicate the only way she knows how?" Dr. Vasquez nodded in agreement. "Marcus is right. Her behavioral patterns suggest high intelligence. The breakout was surgical, precise. She avoided hurting anyone despite having multiple opportunities." Commander Walsh studied the screens showing the girl sitting quietly against the hull, her scales still displaying the pale submission color. Finally, she nodded. "Fine. But you go in with a full security escort, and at the first sign of aggression, you retreat immediately." 20 minutes later, Marcus found himself standing at the entrance to Section D, wearing a protective suit and accompanied by 6 heavily armed security personnel. The girl was exactly where they had left her, sitting cross-legged with her back against the outer hull. The hole she had cut was precise and clean, clearly the work of someone who understood structural engineering. As they approached, she didn't move, but Marcus could see her scales shifting through subtle color changes. When she saw him, they took on a curious golden hue with flecks of green. "Hello," Marcus said softly, knowing she probably couldn't understand the words, but hoping his tone would convey peaceful intentions. The girl tilted her head, studying him with those deep black eyes. Slowly, carefully, she raised one hand and pointed to herself, then to him, then to the small hole in the hull. "I think she wants to show us something," Marcus reported through his radio. "Permission to approach closer?" "Negative. Maintain safe distance." But the girl seemed to understand his hesitation. She stood slowly, moving with deliberate care to show she meant no harm, and approached the hole she had cut. She pointed again, this time at the opening, then at Marcus. Through the hole, Marcus could see stars, but there was something else, a faint glimmer of light that seemed to be moving in a pattern. "There's something out there," he reported. "Some kind of signal or light source." The girl nodded enthusiastically when she heard him speak into his radio. Her scales brightened to a warm yellow, and she pointed again at the hole, then at herself, then at Marcus. Dr. Vasquez's voice crackled through the radio. "Marcus, I think she's trying to show you something from her homeworld, or her ship. The breakout, the demonstration of power, it was all to get your attention focused on that specific location." As if understanding the conversation, the girl moved away from the hole and sat down again, making herself as small and non-threatening as possible. She looked at Marcus expectantly, her scales now cycling through what could only be described as hopeful colors. For the first time in 3 months, Marcus began to think they might actually be making progress. The girl wasn't wild or untamable. She was intelligent, patient, and desperately trying to communicate something important. They had just been too blind to see it. The real question now was whether they could learn to listen before it was too late. 3 days after the incident in Section D, Dr. Marcus Chen found himself staring at a data pad filled with the most unusual language analysis he had ever seen. The girl, whom the staff had finally agreed to call Zara, since she responded positively to the name, had been moved to a new, more comfortable containment area with transparent walls instead of solid barriers. The change in her behavior was remarkable. She no longer destroyed furniture or showed aggressive displays. Instead, she spent her time creating intricate patterns on the floor using small stones and pieces of food, always making sure the designs faced the observation windows where the humans could see them. Her scales remained in the calm blue-green spectrum most of the time, only shifting to warning colors when too many people gathered to watch her at once. "The patterns aren't random," Dr. Vasquez explained, pointing to the latest creation Zara had made. "Look at this. She's using mathematical sequences. This section here follows the Fibonacci spiral, and this part appears to be a star chart." Marcus nodded, though his mind was elsewhere. He had been having trouble sleeping since the breakout, haunted by the look in Zara's eyes when she pointed to the hole in the hull. There had been something desperate in that gesture, something urgent that they still didn't understand. "Has anyone figured out what she was trying to show us through that hole?" he asked. "Not yet. The area of space she indicated appears empty on all our scans. But," Dr. Vasquez hesitated, "there have been some unusual energy readings from that direction, very faint, but with a pattern that suggests artificial origin." Before Marcus could respond, Commander Walsh entered the observation area with someone he didn't recognize. The newcomer was a woman in civilian clothes, probably in her 30s, with kind eyes and an easy smile. What surprised Marcus was Zara's immediate reaction to seeing her. The alien girl's scales shifted to a warm golden color, and she approached the transparent wall, placing her hand against the surface. "Dr. Chen, Dr. Vasquez, I'd like you to meet Dr. Sarah Collins," Commander Walsh said. "She specializes in interspecies communication and has experience with nonverbal intelligent species." Dr. Collins stepped forward, and Marcus noticed that she moved slowly and deliberately, avoiding direct eye contact with Zara while still acknowledging her presence. "I've been reviewing the footage from the past 3 months," she said softly. "I believe you've all been doing the best you could with an impossible situation. But I think there are some things we can try differently." "Such as?" Marcus asked, though he was more focused on watching Zara, who had begun creating a new pattern on the floor while keeping one eye on Dr. Collins. "For starters, we need to stop treating her like a test subject and start treating her like a person who's trying to have a conversation. Every interaction you've had with her has been from a position of authority, humans on the outside looking in, making decisions about what happens to her. She's intelligent enough to recognize that power dynamic, and it's preventing real communication." Dr. Collins moved to the entry panel for Zara's containment area. "I'd like to go inside and sit with her. No tools, no recording equipment, no agenda except to listen to what she's trying to tell us." "Absolutely not," Commander Walsh said immediately. "She's demonstrated the ability to tear through reinforced metal. It's too dangerous." "With respect, Commander, danger is a two-way street. She's been in your custody for 3 months and hasn't injured a single person despite having multiple opportunities to do so. The breakout in Section D was a demonstration, not an attack. She's showing remarkable restraint for someone who's been essentially imprisoned." Marcus found himself nodding in agreement. "Dr. Collins has a point. Zara has been trying to communicate with us from the beginning. We've just been too focused on containment protocols to listen properly." Zara had stopped working on her floor pattern and was watching the humans intently. Her scales were cycling through colors Marcus had never seen before, complex patterns of silver and blue that seemed to shift like water. "Those color changes," Dr. Collins observed. "Has anyone attempted to map them to emotional states or specific meanings?" "We've tried," Dr. Vasquez admitted, "but without understanding the context, it's mostly guesswork." "Then let's get some context." Dr. Collins turned to Commander Walsh. "I know it goes against protocol, but I've worked with dozens of species that were initially considered dangerous. Fear creates aggression. Isolation creates desperation. If we want to understand her, we need to meet her on equal terms." After 20 minutes of debate and argument, Commander Walsh finally agreed to a modified version of Dr. Collins's plan. The security systems would remain active, but Dr. Collins would enter Zara's containment area with only a small communication device and would be allowed to interact freely as long as Zara remained calm. When the door to the containment area opened, Zara immediately backed away to the far corner, but her scales showed curiosity rather than fear. Dr. Collins entered slowly, sitting down on the floor near the entrance and making no move to approach closer. "Hello," Dr. Collins said quietly. "My name is Sarah. I'm here because I think you have something important to tell us, and we haven't been listening properly." Zara tilted her head, studying this new human who was behaving so differently from the others. After a long moment, she moved slightly closer and began working on a new pattern with the materials scattered around her space. Dr. Collins watched patiently, occasionally commenting on the emerging design, but making no attempt to direct or control the interaction. "That's beautiful," she said when Zara created a spiral pattern with small stones. "It reminds me of the galaxy formations we can see through our telescopes." At the word galaxy, Zara's scales shifted to an excited golden color. She pointed to her pattern, then toward the wall where she had previously indicated the location of the hole in Section D. "You're trying to show us something about space, aren't you?" Dr. Collins said. "Something out there that's important." Zara nodded vigorously, then began creating a more complex pattern. This one showed what appeared to be a large central spiral with smaller objects orbiting around it. She pointed to one of the smaller objects, then to herself. "That's your home," Dr. Collins realized. "You're from one of those smaller systems." But Zara shook her head and pointed to a different object in her pattern, one that appeared to be moving away from the main group. She made gestures indicating movement and urgency, her scales shifting to worried yellow with streaks of red. Dr. Collins studied the pattern more carefully. Something is leaving your home system. Something that shouldn't be. Through the observation window, Marcus was frantically taking notes. The implications of what they were seeing were staggering. Zara wasn't just an orphaned alien child. She was potentially a refugee from some kind of interstellar crisis. Over the next several hours, Dr. Collins continued her patient conversation with Zara. Gradually, a story began to emerge through the alien girl's careful patterns and color changes. Her people were apparently highly advanced, with the ability to travel between star systems. But something had gone wrong. The patterns Zara created showed ships fleeing from her home system, scattering in all directions. "You came here to warn us," Dr. Collins said suddenly, the pieces finally falling into place. "That's what you were trying to show us through the hole in Section D. There's something coming from your home system, something dangerous." Zara's scales shifted to deep purple with flashes of red, colors they had never seen before. She pointed frantically at her latest pattern, which showed the scattered ships converging on a new location. With growing horror, Dr. Collins realized that the convergence point was marked with symbols that matched the star patterns visible from their own station. "Marcus," Dr. Collins called through her communication device, "I need you to check those energy readings from the coordinates Zara indicated. Check them again, but look for multiple sources, not just one." As Marcus and Dr. Vasquez rushed to recalibrate their sensors, Dr. Collins turned back to Zara. "How long do we have?" Zara created a new pattern showing the progression of celestial bodies, what appeared to be a timeline. Based on the stellar positions she indicated, Dr. Collins estimated they had perhaps weeks, possibly less. "Your ship," Dr. Collins said urgently. "The one you arrived in. Can we fix it? Can you use it to communicate with your people?" For the first time since Dr. Collins had entered the containment area, Zara's scales shifted to a hopeful green. She nodded eagerly and began creating the most complex pattern yet, what appeared to be technical schematics for her crashed vessel. "Marcus," Dr. Collins called again, "we need a team to examine Zara's ship immediately. And we need to stop thinking of her as a subject and start treating her as what she really is. Our best hope for understanding what's coming." Commander Walsh's voice crackled through the communication system. "Dr. Collins, we're detecting massive energy signatures approaching from the coordinates Zara indicated. Multiple contacts, moving in formation. Estimated arrival time is 16 days. In the containment area, Zara had heard the announcement. Her scales shifted through a rapid sequence of colors that Dr. Collins was beginning to understand meant complex emotions, fear, hope, determination, and something that might have been relief that someone was finally listening. "Zara," Dr. Collins said, moving closer to the alien girl for the first time. "Will you help us? Will you work with us to prepare for what's coming?" Zara reached out and gently touched Dr. Collins's hand. Her scales shifted to a warm, steady blue-green, and for the first time in 3 months, she made a sound. A low, musical hum that somehow conveyed more meaning than words ever could. Trust. After all this time, they had finally found the key to communication, treating her not as something to be controlled, but as someone with vital information to share. The real work was just beginning. Dr. Sarah Collins had not left Zara's side for 3 days. What had started as a breakthrough in communication had evolved into something far more profound. A partnership that was reshaping everything they thought they knew about interspecies cooperation. Zara's containment area had been transformed into a makeshift command center. The transparent walls were covered with her intricate patterns, each one providing crucial information about the approaching fleet. Her crashed ship had been brought into the station's main bay, where human and alien worked together to repair systems that no human had ever imagined possible. The quantum resonance amplifier is functioning at 60%, Marcus reported, his hands covered in the bioluminescent fluid that Zara's technology used instead of traditional circuits. But I don't understand how the consciousness interface works. Zara looked up from where she was carefully reconnecting neural pathways in what appeared to be the ship's central processing unit. Her scales had settled into a pattern of steady gold and blue that Dr. Collins had learned indicated focused concentration. Without speaking, Zara gently took Marcus's hand and placed it on a crystal-like structure at the heart of the system. Suddenly, Marcus's mind was flooded with images and sensations that were utterly alien yet somehow comprehensible. He saw vast fleets of ships moving through space, not as mechanical vessels, but as living entities that responded to thought and emotion. He felt the terror that had driven Zara's people from their home system and the desperate hope that had guided her small ship to this remote research station. "It's not just technology," Marcus whispered when the connection ended. "Their ships are alive. They're grown, not built, and they're connected to their pilots on a neural level." Dr. Collins watched as Zara returned to her work, her movements graceful and precise. Over the past few days, they had learned that what they had mistaken for childlike behavior was actually the result of severe trauma and isolation. When treated with respect and given the tools to communicate properly, Zara displayed intelligence that far exceeded anything they had imagined. "How old are you, really?" Dr. Collins asked during one of their breaks. Zara created a pattern on the floor that, when translated through the mathematical progressions she had taught them, indicated an age equivalent to a young adult human. She had been alone on that outer rim planet for nearly 2 years, waiting for someone to find her crashed ship and understand her warning. Commander Walsh entered the repair bay, her expression grim. "Long-range sensors are picking up more detailed information about the approaching fleet. Dr. Collins, you need to see this." They gathered around the main display screen, where the sensor data painted a troubling picture. The fleet consisted of dozens of ships, but they weren't following normal tactical formations. Instead, they moved in patterns that suggested desperation and fear. "They're refugees," Dr. Collins realized, looking at Zara for confirmation. The alien girl's scales had shifted to deep purple with streaks of silver. The colors Dr. Collins had learned indicated profound sadness. Zara began creating a new pattern, this one showing her home system in detail. At the center was a massive structure that pulsed with malevolent energy. As she added more elements to the design, the story became clear. An ancient artificial intelligence had awakened in the core of their civilization, turning their own technology against them. The ships approaching Earth weren't an invasion force. They were the last survivors of a species fleeing extinction. "They don't know if they can trust humans," Dr. Collins said, watching Zara's careful work. "That's why you had to test us first. You needed to know if we were capable of cooperation or if we would just see them as a threat to be destroyed." Zara nodded, her scales shifting to a pattern that Dr. Collins recognized as approval, mixed with lingering worry. Then she pointed to herself and made gestures indicating communication and mediation. "You want to help us talk to them," Marcus understood, "to convince them that humans can be trusted as allies." Over the next week, they worked frantically to prepare for first contact. Zara's ship was repaired enough to send messages to the approaching fleet, though the responses they received were filled with suspicion and fear. The refugees had learned to distrust any species that might see their advanced technology as something to be seized rather than shared. Dr. Collins found herself serving as an intermediary between two species that had no common frame of reference. The refugees communicated through complex combinations of color, sound, and neural interface patterns that required Zara's translation to understand. Meanwhile, the humans had to overcome their own instincts to treat the situation as a potential invasion rather than a humanitarian crisis. "They want proof," Zara explained through her patterns after a particularly difficult communication session. Proof that humans understand cooperation, not just domination. What kind of proof? Commander Walsh asked. Zara's response was unexpected. She created a pattern showing herself, free and unrestrained, working alongside humans as an equal partner. She pointed to the research station, then to her own people, then back to herself. She wants to stay, Dr. Collins realized. Even after her people arrive safely, she wants to remain here as an ambassador, but only if we prove we can treat her as a partner, not a specimen to be studied. It was Dr. Marcus Chen who made the decision that changed everything. Zara, he said formally, would you like to become a permanent member of our research team? With full access to our facilities, full participation in our decisions, and full recognition as a colleague and friend? Zara's scales exploded into colors none of them had ever seen before, brilliant patterns of silver, gold, and crystal clear that seemed to generate their own light. The emotional response was so intense that the patterns seemed to pulse in rhythm with her heartbeat. When the refugee fleet finally arrived in orbit around the station, they found something they had never expected, one of their own people working freely alongside an alien species, engaged in genuine scientific collaboration. The sight of Zara, healthy, happy, and clearly thriving, did more to ease tensions than any diplomatic protocol could have achieved. The integration process took months, but it was successful beyond anyone's wildest dreams. The refugees shared their biological technology, teaching humans how to grow ships that could heal themselves and respond to their pilots' thoughts. In return, humans shared their expertise in resource management and their unique ability to adapt to diverse environments. Zara became the bridge between two species, but more than that, she became proof that understanding and trust could overcome even the most fundamental differences. Her wildness had never been savage behavior. It had been the frustrated attempts of a highly intelligent being trying to communicate with people who weren't ready to listen. Dr. Sarah Collins often reflected on those early days as she watched Zara working in the expanded research facility. The alien girl, now a respected scientist in her own right, moved through the mixed human and refugee staff with easy grace, her scales showing the calm patterns of someone who had finally found her place in the world. "Do you ever regret staying?" Dr. Collins asked during one of their regular walks through the station's new biogardens, where human and alien plants grew together in impossible harmony. Zara's response came not through patterns this time, but through the neural interface technology that some humans had learned to use. The communication was clearer than words could ever be, images of friendship, of scientific discoveries that neither species could have achieved alone, of a future where the differences between human and alien mattered less than the bonds they had chosen to build together. She had never needed to be tamed. She had only needed to be understood. And in learning to understand her, humanity had discovered something profound about themselves, that their greatest strength lay not in their ability to conquer or control, but in their capacity to listen, to adapt, and to extend trust even when it seemed impossible. The wild alien girl had indeed found humans worthy of her trust, but perhaps more importantly, she had helped humans become worthy of that trust in the first place. In the end, that mutual transformation was the greatest discovery of all. Years later, when other species heard the story of first contact between humans and the refugees, they would speak of it as a model for interspecies cooperation. But those who had been there knew the truth was simpler and more profound. Sometimes the most important thing you can do is sit down, listen carefully, and treat someone as a friend rather than a problem to be solved. Zara had taught them that lesson, and in doing so had changed the course of galactic history. Not through force or superior technology, but through the simple, revolutionary act of trust.